We have a lot of history doing adaptive reuse projects like this, like in Industry City, like Chelsea Market, which at one time, just like this project, was, a number of older buildings that were past their prime, but people really like classic old buildings that you take and redevelop into offices and retail and things that are fun. So we've seen this before, and we've done it at other locations. So look, I'm surprised we took on something as large, if you really want to know, that's 6 million square feet, but we've been able to do it. So from a success standpoint, I'm not surprised.
Jim, talk to us about how you're thinking about real estate, mixed-use real estate, office real estate, in the context of what appears to be a post-pandemic, different way people work and live and go to the office and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. We've been at this since doing exactly what we do, which is adaptive reuse and activation and fun place, creating a fun place to work for a long time. We didn't know a pandemic was coming. It so happens that it came, and what we do was more attractive to people. So what we do here is create a place that people like to come and work. And so we've actually been at 80% of the employees that work at IC have been back in the office regularly for several years now. And so that's kind of what we do, is create fun places to work that are not commodity real estate. And by the way, I worked in many glass and steel office buildings in my career, and these are just more fun places to work. And people like coming to work when they come to places like this.
So how do you know when a project's going to work, right? Like you mentioned Chelsea Market and then Industry City. Like, what's the secret sauce?
I will tell you, the secret sauce is, so what you first do is you start with the ground floor and the placemaking. And for us, when you do something like this, when you have a project, you need retail, you need food and beverage, you need shopping, you need things like that. But how do you do that without any foot traffic? Nobody wants to come and do retail with you when you do that. So what we did at Chelsea Market, and did the same thing here, is we went to wholesalers and commissaries and bakeries and things like that. People that really were interested in the production space more than retail, but they had to do retail with us. That was part of the deal, and we gave them a favorable rate in the beginning to do that. But they needed ground floor space. They needed space that had plenty of loading. Getting priced out of New York City was something that they didn't want. They wanted to be near their customers. So we would go to those, and you go back to Chelsea Market. Lobster Place was a classic example, wholesale fish, seafood place. For us, it was others, bakeries such as Colson's and Lilac Chocolates and things like that. Companies that really were interested in production space, but we wanted them to do retail. So that way, they're two businesses. You don't have to worry about the foot traffic in the beginning while you're getting this going. But what you do is you start to get retail and amenity type tenants on the ground floor and placemaking, and that's how you start to lease the upper floors. Once you start to do that, then you have tenants in the building that are just happen to be right next door to those retailers, and then the retail takes off. And if you're to answer your specific question, how do you know? You know when those folks, who, by the way, didn't really want to do retail with you in the beginning because you didn't have foot traffic, when those folks come to you and say, "How can you do more marketing for me? And can you get me more foot traffic? This is fantastic," because they're doing retail margins instead of wholesale margins in their space. As soon as that happens, that's when you got something.
So, Jim, how about on like the corporate tenant side? What type of companies want to be in a space like yours?
So we tend to have more creative type companies, lots of designers, architects, marketing firms, things like that. That's kind of very consistent with the Brooklyn market. And Paul, we're going to have to get you out here. So because by the way, I grew up in Manhattan, and I now live in Brooklyn. And if you told me back when I was in high school I'd be living in Brooklyn,
Thank you. You see me. Okay.
Okay, but so anyway, but we have a lot of that. We are starting to see some more traditional type of companies like finance firms and law firms and things like that, which we did not see in the beginning. But we have a lot of that. We have a lot of industrial. We're 6 million square feet, first of all. So that's a lot of space to fill up with, with just one or two types of industries. So we have a lot of distribution and warehouse still. But our office itself focuses more on creative companies. And then we have people like the Brooklyn Nets, so the Brooklyn Nets, their headquarters and player personnel and back office are all here. So it's really, it's a much wider range of types of companies than you would normally see in a project, partially because we are 6 million square feet and 16 buildings. So we have the ability to do things differently building by building that you may not be able to do if you were one or two buildings.
Okay, so